In today's video, we will react to the video Why Did Jesus Say, By Myself I Can Do Nothing, John 5:30 by David Woods. David Wood is known as an American Christian apologist and the founder of Acts 17 Apologetics, an organization that focuses on Christian apologetics, particularly in relation to Islam. Wood is recognized for his debates and discussions about Christianity and Islam on various platforms, including social media and YouTube. He often engages in debates with Muslim apologists and critics of Christianity, addressing topics like the theological differences between Christianity and Islam, the historical validity of religious texts, and the life of religious figures such as Jesus and Muhammad. In John 5:30, Jesus says, "By myself I can do nothing." As the description says, David Woods reacts to Muslim apologists that point to this verse to show that Jesus can't be God. David Wood goes through the passage. Let us listen how he disproves the Muslim apologists and critics of the doctrine of the divinity of Jesus.
And this was why the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is working until now, and I am working." It's the Sabbath, but Jesus says that he's working because the Father is working. This might not seem like a big deal to someone in the 21st century, but it was a huge deal to first century Jews. Jews weren't allowed to work on the Sabbath. However, there was a debate among the Jewish rabbis about whether God works on the Sabbath. Some of them reasoned that since God upholds and sustains the universe even on the Sabbath, God works on the Sabbath. Jews don't get to work on the Sabbath, but God works on the Sabbath. That was their reasoning. How does Jesus answer the Jewish leaders when they complain that he's working on the Sabbath? He says, "My Father is working until now, and I am working." Like father, like son, as the saying goes. Now, if rabbis are discussing the Sabbath, and they conclude that even though they're not allowed to work on the Sabbath, God works on the Sabbath, and some guy comes along and says, "Yeah, that's why I'm working on the Sabbath, like father, like son," what does it sound like he's claiming? It sounds like he's putting himself in the same category with God, rather than in the mere human being category.
In this clip, Mr. Wood implies a perspective where there are primarily two categories being considered for Jesus, one as a mere human being, and the other as being in the same category as God. This viewpoint suggests a binary classification, either seeing Jesus as simply human or equating him with God. Is Jesus in the category of being a mere man, or in the category of being equal to God? Our answer is none of the above. Why? Because Mr. Wood is ignorant of the fact that there is another category where Jesus belongs. Let's read 1 Timothy 2 verse 5. "For there is one God and one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus." Jesus does not belong to the category of mere man, neither he belong to the category of God, but the category of man. He's not a simple man, but a mediator. Let us continue.
And as the next verse shows, that's exactly what the Jewish leaders thought he was saying. Look at the heading, by the way.
The heading bears no significance, Mr. Wood.
Verse 18, "This was why the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because not only was he breaking the Sabbath, but he was even calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God."
I don't know if Mr. Wood is dumb or just playing dumb. Because why would one put faith in the words of the Jews who were antagonistic towards Christ? Why align with their perspective as though their statements carry the same weight as God's words? It appears that their objective wasn't to present the truth, but rather to ensnare him with falsehoods. And in John 8 verse 44, he said to them, "You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires." He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. And in 41 he said, "You are doing the works of your own father." Is the devil also your father? Let us continue.
The question is, what does the phrase "Son of God" mean when it's applied to Jesus? Does it mean something more than when it's applied to, say, me?
Obviously, it does not apply to you.
In John 5, Jesus is clearly claiming to be the Son of God in a very special and unique way. When he says that the Father is working on the Sabbath, so he's working on the Sabbath, the religious leaders consider this blasphemy because he's calling God his own Father, making himself equal with God.
Once again, you are aligning with the enemies of Jesus. Let us consider what does Jesus mean when he says he is the Son of God? What does the term Son of God signify when applied to Jesus? In John 10:37, Jesus states, "Why then do you accuse me of blasphemy because I said, I am God's Son? Do not believe me unless I do the works of my Father." Therefore, when the title Son of God is used in reference to Jesus, it implies that he is performing the works of his Father, or in other words, he is the one obedient to God. So, being the Son of God only reinforces the idea that he is not God himself. There is no concept of a God who is obedient to another God. If that were the case, then there would be two gods, one who is obeyed and another who is the obedient God.
Jesus does whatever the Father does? What mere human being, what mere prophet could ever say, whatever God does, I do that too? So, when Jesus says the Son can do nothing of his own accord, is he claiming to be a mere human being? Or is he claiming to be the divine Son who's one with the Father and therefore can't do anything separately from the Father?
Once again, you are limiting the option to only two categories. The Bible does not suggest that Jesus is merely a human being. For you, if Jesus is not a mere man, he is therefore not human and automatically becomes God.
The Father judges no one, but has given all judgment to the Son. There are two main possibilities here. Either the Bible and the Quran are wrong and God isn't the final judge because he's handed all judgment over to a helpless human being, or God is indeed the final judge because Jesus is God, and within the nature of the one God, the Father has given all judgment to the Son.
Mr. Wood, you've overlooked the main and most probable possibility that you're wrong. Once again, we see willful ignorance on the part of Mr. Wood. He completely overlooks verse 30 where Jesus says, "By myself I can do nothing. I judge only as I hear, and my judgment is just, for I seek not to please myself but him who sent me." God is the final judge because the judgment that Jesus executes is that he hears from the Father. This is clearly echoed by Jesus in John 12:48-49, where he states, "The word that I have spoken will judge him on the last day. For I have not spoken on my own authority. The Father who sent me gave me a command what I should say and what I should speak." Then Jesus concluded the chapter by saying, "Therefore, whatever I speak, just as the Father has told me, so I speak." In other words, Jesus will only speak the word of judgment, but that word does not originate from him, but from God. And it is very clear why he said in John 5 verse 30, "I of my own accord can do nothing."
And Son are one, but the Father hands all judgment over to the Son, so that all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father. The only way we would honor the Son just as we honor the Father is if the Son has the same nature and attributes as the Father.
Wrong again. What does it mean to honor someone? In Exodus 20:12 it is written, "Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you." But what does this mean according to Paul? In Ephesians 6:1-2, he states, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother." So how do you honor the Father? By obeying God's commandments. And how do you honor Jesus? By obeying Jesus' commands. But Jesus says, "The Father who sent me gave me a command about what I should say and what I should speak. Therefore, whatever I speak just as the Father has told me." Since the source of Jesus' commands is God, when you obey Jesus, you honor him, and in doing so, you also honor God. This is not because they are of the same nature, but because their commands are aligned. Without the Father, who gives Jesus the command about what to say and speak, he can do nothing. This is the reason why he said, "I of my own accord can do nothing." Jesus' statement, "I of my own accord can do nothing," found in John 5:30, is closely connected to his other declarations about following his Father's commands. He says, "By myself I can do nothing. I judge only as I hear, and my judgment is just, for I seek not to please myself but him who sent me." This is further echoed in John 14:31, where he states, so that the world may learn that I love the Father and do exactly what my Father has commanded me. In this context, Jesus emphasizes his complete dependence on and alignment with the will of God. The connection between this statement and his commitment to doing what the Father commands lies in the concepts of obedience and unity of purpose. Obedience. Jesus expresses that his actions are not self-originated or independent, but are entirely in obedience to and guided by the will of the Father. He does nothing on his own initiative, but only what he sees the Father doing or what the Father commands him to do. Unity with the Father. These statements highlight the unity between Jesus and the Father. Jesus' actions, teachings, and judgments are portrayed as a direct reflection of the Father's will and purpose. Authority and purpose. By asserting that he can do nothing by himself, Jesus is neither implying weakness nor divinity. Instead, he is affirming that his authority and actions are rooted in his mission and identity, fully aligned with God's plan and purpose. In summary, I of my own accord can do nothing illustrates Jesus' complete submission to and alignment with God's will, emphasizing the unity of purpose and obedience in his earthly ministry, not unity in being one God. Just because Jesus and his Father are working at the same time does not necessarily mean they are both God. This simply means that when Jesus is working, he is doing the work of his Father. They have complete unity in purpose. Therefore, when he heals someone, it is God who gives him the power to heal. When he preaches what he heard from God. When he judges, it is God who has given him the judgment. All he does is speak out what has been judged by the Father. When he calls out to those in the grave, the dead are able to hear his voice because God has made it so. At the end of the day, it is God who makes everything possible, not Jesus. The only thing Jesus did was to humbly obey God. That is why he said, I of my own accord can do nothing.